Well, about a half hour ago, this was a different show than what it turned out to be. Calgary nursing a 1-0 lead through 40 minutes of play through two periods, and lo and behold, the bottom falls out. Two goals, 23 seconds apart in the first minute. The Penguins moved to 2-1 with a 5-2 win over the Calgary Flames. The Flames dropped to 1-1, are back in action on Monday in Washington. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Afterburner, live on Flames Nation and the Nation Network. I would be Rob Kerr, the host of Just a Game. He is Danny Austin, the host of Live from 55 and also from Post Media. And Danny, as we get into it, this is going to be one of those fun early season games that the result clearly not what anybody was looking for. But I liked more of this game, quite honestly, for Calgary than I did in Wednesday's win over Winnipeg. That stunning news has caught Danny off guard, clearly.
Markstrom still had to stand on his head a little bit, but they were able to get the puck out of their own zone, which they really struggled doing against the Jets. So there was a lot to like. It's just, man, did this game ever get turned on its head?
It did. My apologies. I'm having a rough time here with Danny on his end. Okay, Jackie, that's the indication that I was looking for. So what I'll do is, as we get Danny back on, we'll just go through some of the early numbers in this one, as it is final. Calgary falling to the Pittsburgh Penguins by a 5-2 score. Shots on goal favoring Calgary in this game, 36-30. They outshot Pittsburgh 15-11 in period number one, outshot them 11-5 in the second period, but were outshot 14-10 in the third period by the home team. Power plays in this one, Calgary goes 1 for 3, and Pittsburgh goes 0 for 3. That was really the story of the first period, was the Penguins with some 5-on-3 time, with some extended power play time, and as Danny was alluding to, or trying to allude to, the goaltending of Markstrom was just superb. And through 40 minutes, it was excellent. Really difficult to make a case when you give up 4 goals on 13 shots in the third period. But I will say this, and once we go through the rest of the numbers, but one of the things that jumps out at me is, boy, the Flames don't have a Sidney Crosby, do they? Because Sidney Crosby was excellent in that third period, and I think the direct driver for for the home team to come back. He ends up with 1 point in that period, but I just thought he was fabulous. He was absolutely fabulous. So for that standpoint, as we take a look at the rest of the numbers, Markstrom, four goals given up on 29 shots and 1 empty net shot. Nedeljkovic gave up 2 goals on 34 shots. The goal scorers for Calgary, Coronado with his first on a power play at 18:22 of the first. Lindholm and Anderson get the helpers on that one. Then it stays that way until the 18-second mark of the third period. Brian Rust, his second from Letang and Gensel. And then just 23 seconds later, at 41 seconds of the third period, Riley Smith second in as many games, Malkin and Raquel with the assist. The eventual game winner coming at 5:50. Gensel, his first from Letang and Crosby. Malkin would then score to make it 4-1 at 14-14 from Riley Smith. The Flames would cut the lead to just 2, 16:05, with Huberdeau getting his first from Mangiapane and Hanifin. That would allow the Flames to bring Markstrom out of the net, create some chances, although it seemed like Pittsburgh had more chances on an empty net than Calgary had on the Pittsburgh net. And eventually one of those would go in. Was Brian Rust, his second of the game, third of the year from Gensel into an empty net for them at 19:38. So that's where we sit with a basic look at the numbers. Danny, we got you back. Just to reset your thoughts, I kind of fed you the softball. There's many pieces of this game that I liked more so than even the win over Winnipeg. The third period, not one of them. But even with the third period, I'm very encouraged by the start of Markstrom to this season.
I mean, we can talk about, a million different questions about this team, but if Jacob Markstrom can steal them some of the games that he didn't last year, then they're going to be a better hockey team. I don't think that's controversial in any way to say. And yeah, I mean, through those first 2 periods, particularly the opening 20 minutes, he absolutely kept this team in the game. There was obviously the stick save, but there were few others, and I just thought he was exceptional. And I don't know that I look at any of the third period goals and
No.
plainly put those on. Look, it was my number one question of the year, and the early returns are very positive.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah. Go ahead.
He did allow 4 goals. There is that
Yep.
caveat, but
Yep.
but we're early season, so you look at his first 5 periods of the year, and they're one thing. And then, not a larger question. How good has he been? I think he's been better than most of us were hoping for this early.
You are watching Afterburner, brought to you by Greta. Greta is going to be the Afterburner's home for viewing parties this season, so get ready for that. Grab a cocktail, something from the menu, and let the games begin. Or maybe get into the game yourself. Over 50 arcade games from vintage to state-of-the-art. Load up on credits on your Greta game card and get at it. Greta Calgary is located at 213 10th Avenue Southwest. Check them out online, gretabar.com, gretabar.com. Flames fall to the Pittsburgh Penguins by a 5-2 score. Let's talk a little bit about the visitors before we dig in heavily on the local hockey heroes. Through 40 minutes of this game, didn't know what I was watching with Pittsburgh. They looked like a Midland team. I know everybody wants Carlson to pop, but what I saw in the third period leads me to believe that they are potentially dangerous if they can get into the playoffs, and that's because they have Crosby and they have Malkin, who essentially took that game over.
Yeah, I mean, I apologize for saying the most obvious thing, but turns on the planet is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, the Flames maybe don't have on the offensive side right now those guys who does. And I actually think that the Sportsnet broadcast did a nice job sort of pointing out Crosby on those first 2 shifts, or in the first minute of the third period, was doing the things even away from the puck, the things to retrieve the puck that he does so well. It's not just when he has the puck on his stick. He was exceptional. And that is the thing with this Pittsburgh team, is I think that they're, how do I say this? I don't want to be insulting towards them in any way, but, I think that they have holes. I think there's areas where you don't love. They tend to paper over the cracks a little bit.
They do.
And sorry, I'll let you go. Yeah.
No, go ahead. It's just you're cutting in and out a little bit, Danny. So I thought you would stop, so I kept going.
My apologies. We're finding out things about my internet connection on this live stream. It's it's early season for me too, so gonna have to.
We'll bear with you. Don't worry about it.
Gonna have to fix. But yeah, I mean, I think that the Flames, when Jeff Ward was fired and Daryl Sutter was brought in, he taught have that elite talent differently, and I think the Flames are going to have to learn how to control those guys.
I agree. I think the flip side to that is this is where you are paying Huberdeau and Kadri to be your difference makers. I know there's some sense of Huberdeau got another point tonight, got a goal tonight. Lindholm's off to a good start. The points are coming. But there was one of the observations I made of the Winnipeg game was Winnipeg kept catching up, but it only took 2 or 3 minutes later for Calgary to get ahead again. I was waiting after they fell behind 2-1 to see, okay, who's giving the push, who's leading the push, and they were okay, but that's all they were. They were okay. There was nobody that seemed to have horns and smoke coming out of their nose, to counter this. I just didn't see enough. Like there was just no pushback, and it was the stars of the Penguins who got them back into the game, and it was the stars of the Flames you were watching that just didn't seem to have a response.
Well, I mean, I don't know that right now he were an elite on the level of a Crosby or questions about, well, do you want to be paying him over $9 million a year? unfortunately. So, yeah, and it is going to be. I mean, look, we're going to talk about Matthew Coronado. You can't expect a rookie to take over games in that way.
Nope.
I think that shot is as good as advertised. It was exceptional. But yeah, you're right, and I do think at this point, I mean, you're waiting. I think a little bit. Some of that will come from the back end, because I do think that the defensive core on this Flames team has. Yeah, it's Huberdeau.
I think
I mean, he's.
Okay. I think we're gonna have to try. I think we're gonna have to try something else here, Denny, because you're not staying consistent. You're not staying connected. So, why don't we try get Jack to come up with another option here, and maybe it's even dropping the camera and just having the audio, because you're going to the exact places I want to go to, and I just can't hear you. So, why don't we even try that? Maybe just see if that helps. Go ahead, Danny.
I'm just gonna unplug my headphones. Maybe that's something to do. But you let me know.
You sound good. So let me ask you another one then. Let's drift back over to the Flames in this game. And I know what we were just kind of talking about Huberdeau and Kadri. Lindholm's another guy who's got points to start this season. There's a lot of attention on those guys, and these are the types of games where you can answer some questions. I don't think that there were questions answered by, 2 or 3 of the top end guys tonight.
We think that it's early enough that we've got it.
Yeah, you know what? Unfortunately, Danny, it's not working. You're cutting out again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you and Jack try to figure it out, and I'm going to move ahead and go to the Betway highlight of the night, because we've kind of said that name a couple of times. I think it's pretty obvious who it's going to be. The highlight of the night presented by Betway. Get the Betway app on your phone. Bet the responsible way. Bet with Betway. The highlight of the night comes in the second period at 18:22 with the Calgary Flames on the power play. And again, good movement, back to the point, Anderson on net. And what I like about this is right there, if you could see it, Coronado, nice little back glide, pushed off, found the quiet ice, got to the spot. He reminds me of Camilleri. He reminds me of some other shooters. Gets deep, lets it go. It's really accurate. So if you watch here, there he is, squeezes into the quiet ice, and he gets the goal. His first in the NHL, his first of the season, his first power play goal. And I talked about it earlier in the week. I think for the Flames to be successful, his name has to be in the Calder conversation. Not suggesting he's going to beat out Bedard or Cooley or anything like that, but I think he can score some goals this year. That is the Betway highlight of the night. Highlight of the night presented by Betway. Get the Betway app on your phone. And bet the responsible way with Betway. So it is Coronado with his first in the National Hockey League in a 1-0 lead going into the third period. A collapse by Calgary. They give up 5, including 2 goals in 23 seconds apart in the first minute. You go back to this game, and I had made some notes prior to the start of the third period of things that I had noticed. And one of the notes was, who are the Penguins? Like, through 40 minutes, I watched them against Chicago and thought they looked terrible. They shut out Washington last night. They got rid of Brian Burke. They got rid of Ron Hextall. They brought in Dubas. They've added a few things. They brought in Erik Karlsson. That's not just adding a few things. That's your Norris Trophy winner from last year. And they just look like, who are they? What are they? And in that third period, we got the answer. And it was Sidney Crosby. It was Malkin. It was them. They carried this team, put them on their backs, and got them back into this game, and then got them the lead, and then shut everything down. Are they a lock to make the playoffs? I think so. Hope so. I think they're like the Flames in that way. I don't think they're the same teams, but I think they have the same path. I don't think they're going to win divisions and get in, but I think they're going to, get in the middle of the pack, get into the bottom of the pack. But boy, oh boy, if Crosby and Malkin are healthy, and and they're playing, in April, these are the types of guys that are difference makers. Obviously, generational player. We had this conversation with Eric Dahachik on just a game yesterday, as a matter of fact. So from that standpoint, probably more impressed with Pittsburgh tonight than I expected to be. Certainly far more impressed with their third period than their first two periods. And I know they were dangerous in the first, and Markstrom had to be good in the first. But one of the things I thought Calgary did, and they continued in third, is they had really good sticks. Like Calgary had excellent sticks tonight. I thought they were back on plays. The first two periods, obviously, third period, pretty tough to talk about the defensive structure when you give up 5 goals. But in the first two periods, thought they were back checking really well, thought sticks were getting into places that were really important, that were breaking up plays. I thought they held the blue line really well. There were a couple of occasions there where the Penguins, blew the line thinking they were out, and Calgary held it and had, brief odd man rushes. From that standpoint, I think you're starting to see, what would you say? Less thinking is that, because that was the accusation I would make, is that game one, I thought when I was watching them against Winnipeg, they were thinking about where they needed to be, what they needed to do. And it's a new system, new defensive coverage. We've gone away from what Daryl Sutter's demands were and now working on Ryan Huskett. So in game two, I was rather impressed where there the sticks. I think when you go back through the different coaches for the Flames, Bob Hartley's probably biggest adjustment defensively for this team, knowing that he wasn't great, or they weren't great, was pointing sticks at pucks and sticks on pucks defensively. And I can see our pal Danny, and this already sounds and looks better. So I'm very optimistic that this is going to get us off the ground. You feel better?
That's crazy, because all that I did was turn off my Wi-Fi, so the connection should be worse. But let's try. Let's see how it goes.
It's already 10 times better.
Okay.
And if this doesn't work, the next thing will be you'll have to pull the cartridge out and blow on it, because that seems to be the only thing else that would work. But no, it's good to have you back. So I was just talking a little bit about defensive coverage, and I know it's pretty tough to talk about positives in the third period, but through the first two periods, one of the things I really noticed, Danny, was the active sticks of the Flames, that they were doing a great job of having the sticks in the right places to break up rushes, to break up attacking plays, but also to keep pucks in at the blue line. And, it's my contention it's going to take 10, 15, 20 games for them to stop thinking and react. They were used to Daryl Sutter's demands and what he needed. Yes, you've had a training camp and all of those sort of things. But even against Winnipeg, I thought they were guilty of thinking. Like, oh, where am I supposed to? Oh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Now tonight really liked what I saw through 40 minutes with their sticks.
Yeah, and to anyone who would say, oh, well, the first period was not what you'd want it to be. Well, they took too many penalties in the first period, so they spent a lot of time on the penalty kill. So I think that's a little bit hard to judge. But at 5-on-5, I absolutely agree. And I do think that, it can be hard because we only get so much information about what this change from man-to-man to zone means. But absolutely, I think that Winnipeg was taking advantage of space in front of the net to just get guys open. And I think that you saw them close that down. And I do think that was largely the stick play. But yeah, I think 5-on-5, we saw a really big improvement through the first two periods. And the expectation that, you don't want to make, wins and losses matter. So we don't want to say, oh, this was perfect, because it wasn't. But, we're just looking for incremental progress game to game at this point. And I think that you're right that we saw it. I think that there was a big leap there. And yeah, as you said, not thinking is, it's when every athlete tells you, it's when they stop thinking and just start doing and using muscle memory that you really see, their best come out. And
that's what I'll transfer that to Markstrom. And that's another note that I made through 40 minutes is through 5 periods and even 6. I thought Markstrom was reacting. He wasn't thinking. He was just, particularly with the pad saves and particularly on the left side, he's just kicking them out. He's just shooting them out. It's reactionary right now. And he feels big, looks big. He can see things. I just, so much was made about that, first goal, first shot thing and everything that he went through last year. He never felt like he was on his toes. He always felt like he was on his back on his heels. through 5 or 6 periods, I just like his body language. I like the way he's reacting to things. I just think he looks like he's in a better space.
Well, it was very clear last year that Markstrom, I think his confidence was a little bit shot last year.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, the easy thing to do would be to walk that all the way back to the Edmonton series where, the Oilers really lit him up, particularly on the glove side throughout the entire sort of Battle of Alberta, and wonder if that hadn't had an impact. But it seems clear. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm one of the people in the locker room talking to him when they're here at home in Calgary. And he even seems different in the locker room. He jokes around a little bit more. He doesn't have necessarily the same nervous intensity, I guess, if that might not be the right term. But so, yeah, he looks more confident. And the reality is he didn't lose his ability to stop pucks last year. That's not, so yeah, the body language and all of that, those intangible things I think do matter. And he's getting himself in the right position. He is, you said, I mean, the pads are going. There's something that comes with just being confident as a goalie. And I think that, as I said, I don't know how many people could hear me because I think I was cutting in and out, but I do think that it's the biggest question around this team.
Agreed.
Where the goals are going to come from in tight situations in third periods where you're down is certainly another, but Jacob Markstrom is capable when he's at his best of stealing you games, and that's what they need from him. And he very nearly he stole the first 2 periods today.
He did, and listen, he was awesome on Wednesday. He really was, and I know a lot of our peers, your peers in particular, I would say you're a little closer to it than I am, but there was a lot of caveat. Yeah, they won, but Markstrom had to, Markstrom. That's what, when you have the 1A goalie, that's what the 1A goalie does. He wins you games. 2 years ago, Markstrom with the 9 shutouts. That was my thing for him is I want to see him get back in it. He doesn't need to have 9 shutouts, but he needs a couple of shutouts here fairly early in the season. That just is an indicator to me that he's on his game. Yeah.
And I think that, whether it's shutouts or it's just games like the opener against Winnipeg, to be perfectly honest with you, where he walks off the ice knowing. Every person in that rink knew that without Jacob Markstrom, the Calgary Flames would have lost that game to the Winnipeg Jets. And I think that can be big. And look, conversely, what does a third period like that do? I hope it doesn't rattle them. I mean, ultimately everyone's confident when things are going well. We all feel good about ourselves when everything's going perfectly. Sure. So we have to see how this team handles adversity, and we have to see how Jacob Markstrom handles adversity, and make sure that newfound confidence, that newfound sort of self-belief is still there. Yeah. But again, there's no way. I watched all those goals. There's no goal. None of the 4 goals that he let in were by any means goals where, when he's reviewing tape, he's not going to be. There were other mistakes, not by him there.
Yeah, and to me, it's the intensity. Like, you didn't match. We often talk about you give up that goal, you got to have a good next shift, and they had that against Winnipeg. I keep going back to that. They give up the tying goal, they come back and they get the lead. They were really resilient. They were not that tonight in one game, and it's all small sample size. It's funny you talk about early in the season. The guy I'm also watching in this, and we wait to hear from him post game, is Ryan Huska. Because Ryan Huska is going to be a bit of a bellwether here. It's been all rainbows and lollipops. Like, he's been a lot of fun to be around, a lot of fun to listen to, and he's great for us because he's given us long, good answers. But what about when you take one in the gut? And how are you going to handle that? And some of the veterans on this team are probably going to be watching. Okay, how's the new guy behind the bench going to handle that?
And I don't want to draw parallels, but I covered the COVID season. And I watched it go from, oh, wow, Jeff Ward allows them to play music in practice. They all got to pick it. It's all positive vibes, to Jeff Ward saying that, sorry, my phone, I hope that I'm still here.
Oh, yeah, you're fine.
Yep. To Jeff Ward saying that they needed to start giving an S. Not going to swear, right? So these good vibes, the test of that positivity is what happens when you lose 4 or 5 in a row, when the guys on the radio, when the guys on the barn burner are starting to really get critical, when the people in the papers like myself are writing. That's when the fans are getting impatient. That's when the real test of this new positive vibe is. So I suspect that he'll be able to come out today. Ryan Huska, he seems like a teacher. He seems like a guy who understands mistakes are going to happen and who understands, but you got to tighten it up. And it's that work you do in between games that, you mentioned the improvement in the defensive zone between Winnipeg and here. Well, to be honest, I think the start of periods haven't been particularly great. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know against Winnipeg, the first couple minutes of each period, I wasn't particularly impressed with the Flames, at least the first 2 periods. So that may be something you also got to work on, making sure you out there. Because the fact is, the Penguins looked like they smelled blood, it felt like, going into that third period.
Yeah, they saw something that they could exploit for sure. There's no doubt about it. But you want to stay positive, and if that's the case, then you know who's positive? Mandeep and the gang up at BK Beaufort Liquor, located on Trans-Canada Highway across from Winsport beside McDonald's. Stop in and stock up on your way to the mountains. You can follow them on Twitter at BK Liquor, on Instagram at BK Beaufort Liquor. And like you say, Mandeep and the gang are always great and great supporters of us. We're happy to have them back. You watched Huberdeau, you watched Uyghur last year transition from Florida to Calgary. I think we would all agree that the entire season was not what anybody wanted for Huberdeau, but Uyghur seemed to find himself in the second half of the season.
Yep.
Tell me what you're seeing from Sharon Govich, because, he comes over from, New Jersey. In fairness, team that's got some Stanley Cup hopes, and now he comes here. He can skate, but I'm wondering if this is a guy that's still not comfortable yet.
He just seems very passive, doesn't he? Like, passive is the word that I would use.
Yep.
He does not seem assertive. And I will say that I thought he was better today than he was against Winnipeg.
Yep.
I thought he was pretty bad against Winnipeg, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Yep.
I don't think it's a surprise to see him drop down to the fourth line, because I felt he was practically anonymous. And we didn't watch him closely in New Jersey. So there's a part of me where I sort of say, like, I look back at Kadri last year when he was struggling. I was like, sometimes you just got to go out and hit a guy. Sometimes you got to. I don't know what Sharon Govich has to do to get himself going. Right. He's clearly trying to find his game. He wasn't in the lineup for all the Devils playoff games last year. So this is not a particularly new thing. But look, when he was traded here, everyone said, oh, well, he can be the guy who scored, 24 goals 2 years ago. The Jersey's giving up on him. I think more and more we're beginning to question, like, oh, well, maybe Jersey was ready to move on from him for a reason, because I'm not seeing – he sort of floats through games right now, I find. And there were a couple shifts where I thought Greer and Dewar were exceptional tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know, does Sharon Govich fit there? But look, you need some offense from him. I know that he's sort of a defensive forward, but you gave up your top goal scorer in Toffoli. This is a team you mentioned, who has that fire in their belly. Let's not forget that they struggled to score goals late last year.
Yep.
They did. The system is not entirely responsible for that. When other teams were able to sit back and stay in their system in the defensive zones, the Calgary Flames struggled to score goals. So you need Sharon Govich. You can't have just lost to Foley. It's not going to be Coronado coming in and scoring 30 here. Sharon Govich has to be part of it. So you do need more. Yeah. But I also suspect that the move, as you try to build this guy's confidence up, try to get him to find his game, is to leave him in the lineup and let him play through it for 15, 20 games at the very least.
He can kill penalties. Of that, there is no doubt. And who knows, maybe it's a shorty that gets him going or whatever. But I like his legs, and I like the ability to kill penalties. You brought up a really interesting name to me, because one thing that never happens in an environment like this, or even on the afternoon shows or the morning shows, is nobody ever talks about pro scouts. But the Flames got something in AJ Greer, like that waiver claim. I know there was a lot of talk about Zeri, and rightfully so. Guys had, Schwint, they all had great, but they didn't have a Greer. And through 2 games, he has really, to me, fit the bill of what they want on that fourth line.
Yeah, I mean, there's no bigger Walker Dewar fan in the city than me. He's the type of player I love. I love the speed with he plays, the edge that he has to his game while not being a fighter or anything. But yeah, Greer has that confidence of, I'm the toughest guy on the ice, even if he's not. And the reality is, I mean, if you really look at it, they ultimately, Milan Lucic left, and then a couple months later they brought Greer in. So they do want, clearly, they value as an
Mhm.
organization having toughness in the forward group. And personally, I think that Greer looks 10 times the player that Milan Lucic was last year. So
He can
it's,
skate,
yeah, he can
right?
skate. I like the way he throws his body around. I mean, I don't want to just knock Milan Lucic, but when the puck's on Greer's stick, it tends to stay there, not just bounce off.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. That was whatever else. I know there may be debate about the Flames' activity or lack of activity this offseason, but you went out, you got a quintessential fourth line guy who brings that toughness and that grit that this team sorely lacks, clearly.
Flames lose in Pittsburgh by a 5-2 score, blowing a 1-0 lead after 40 minutes of play. They're back in action on on Monday when they take on Washington. In Washington, they travel to Buffalo on Thursday. So out to start the season on a long road trip. Situational conversation, or do you buy into, oh, we're so excited to get this. This is great for us. Like, we can go out on the road and we can bond. And it just seems to me last year when they played all those games at home, it was, oh, this is great for us. We get an opportunity to establish our dominance at home. And you play the games that are played in front of you. Or am I missing something here from your vantage point? Is this an opportunity for Calgary? I mean, it is if you win most of them, but I get that. But
yeah, I mean, I think by the end of that homestand last year, they were all, that's sort of because I was doing Stampeders, so I sort of started right around the end of that homestand. And by the end of the homestand, they sure did want to get out on the road. They really did. And I think that last year was in particular important because you had Huberdeau, you had Uyghur, you had Kadri.
Yeah.
You did just kind of want to get these guys out to get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do buy it, to be honest. I buy that an early road trip. And I wrote a story about it, so I better buy it. Otherwise, I'm lying to my audience. But no, I do buy it. I think that, we heard that Mangiapane took Coronado out for an Italian dinner last night. Like, I think that those things matter. I think that they're part of what ultimately, other than the money, like they help make the life of a professional hockey player. Those bonds that they form between their teammates are so strong, and they create a love. And I think that this can be useful. I think because they're the only show, or they're the biggest show in town here in Calgary, sometimes it is good just to get away from all of us media folk. And I do think that, particularly going to the East Coast, you're so far away, you're staying at beautiful hotels in some amazing cities.
Yep.
And I think that if you believe that the culture and that the positivity matters, then obviously them just being surrounded by it 24/7 for a week and a half has to help.
Yeah.
Does it result in wins and losses? I don't know. But I think it results in people enjoying being Calgary Flames and buying into doing whatever you can for the guy sitting next to you on the bench.
We showed the Betway highlight of the night earlier. That was the Matt Coronado power play goal. -4 on the night, by the way, if you buy into the plus-minus stat. To me, I'm not as worried about that. I mean, he's playing up the roster a lot higher than we expected a rookie to play. And, that line was seeing some pretty incredible matchups in that third period. The goal, though, Dan, and I know we showed it and we couldn't get you I just want to go back and get your thoughts on it. The most important part to me was his push off and he gets into the quiet ice to make it happen. The shot, the release is world class. The offensive thinking right there. He just pushes and he gets into the quiet space. He's very special that way.
Yeah, let's be honest. Every Flames fan, everyone watching is hoping that we see that exact play over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of those things where I think that, you have to take the exhibition games in preseason with a grain of salt. But that doesn't change. That is an awareness and a hockey sense and a hockey IQ, all of those cliches. That is Matthew Coronado understanding where to get on the ice to best use this amazing shot that we've seen. And we already know the shot is on an NHL level. Everything else, the -4, which, yes, we understand it's not a perfect stat, but all that stuff, we're expecting him to take time here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Matthew Coronado was just going to go out there and score 50 goals and make no mistakes, he would have been the number 1 overall pick. He's not that. There are going to be ups and downs and a work in progress, and we see that with pretty much everybody. But that, we know he can do that, and that is really exciting because we talked about, where is the scoring going to come from late? All of that. That indicates to me that it's just another weapon on the power play, and I think it bodes extremely well for the Flames going forward this season, and that's why I don't think it's impossible that we see Matthew Coronado score 25 or, somewhere just south of 30 goals this year.
Well, and that's what I said. I don't expect him to win the Calder. I expect him to be in the conversation, though. Because somebody has to be. I mean, Bedard's probably going to win it, maybe Cooley, but there'll be that other tertiary level, and I think he needs to be in there. And they clearly think he can be because they've already put him on the number 1 power play unit, and it's worked, right? And it's worked. Yeah. He had chances he had chances against Winnipeg, and he scores tonight.
Do you like? Can I ask just a question for you? I mean, he started on the second line, sort of the Kadri line, and then they had him mostly with Coleman and Backlund today. Do you like? He's a young guy. Is there value in sort of keeping him with the same line mates?
I think at some point he needs to become the permanent right winger on the Huberdeau Lidstrom line. I think that just because the playmaking ability, and then that gives you 2 shooters. Having said that, I like him with Coleman and Backlund right now because he's going to learn habits. He's with 2 very reliable defensive guys that are just going to drag him into playing defense. So, you put him on the power play and then you bury him in the 4th line, doesn't do anybody any good. So I think you live with your lumps like you did tonight, and just through osmosis, he's going to become a better overall player by playing with 2 responsible guys like Coleman and Backlund.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. No, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's early. The great Peter Marr always said that it was the second quarter of the season that tells you your story about your team. Your first quarter, it's ups and downs, home stands, the home opener, all that stuff. But that second, and now the great Randy Sportak always argued that there wasn't, we always did the quarters wrong, but basically games 20 through 40 is what we were talking about. And, a lot can happen between now and then, but I suspect he stays with Backlund and Coleman. That's my guess, barring injuries.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if that's the part of his game that you're trying to develop, and that shot's there, the power play stuff is there, but for him to be the well-rounded player who you want him to be in 2 or 3 years, then of course, learn from your captain, learn from Blake Coleman. The guy's won 2 cups. It's a perfect situation for a young guy.
Blue line, 2 games in, giving up 8 goals, and we are raving about the play of Jacob Markstrom. So that does make me wonder, okay, then where's the deficiency here? Saw 10 minutes of Dennis Gilbert tonight, saw a little bit of Osterley, and saw him in game 1. Hannafin, Hannafin's another guy that was on the ice for a lot of goals tonight, but that's because he plays a ton. Your thoughts through 2 games of the 6 that have been thrown out there, the blue line that's playing for Ryan Husker right now?
Where I struggle with being too critical, and I think that clearly, like, you're right. I especially think in that Winnipeg game, without Markstrom, they're down heavy. There were guys just standing in front of the net, just waiting for the puck to get to their stick. But I can't earlier in this conversation say like, oh, of course it's going to take them a while to figure out this zone. They got to get to not thinking, as you were saying, all of that. Yep. And then go too hard on them for the fact that they're not where they need to be just yet. This is one of those things where, we're doing a show, we're trying to create content about it and all that. So we don't just want to say, oh, well, it's only game 2. But it is only game 2. And I think that I know what Rasmus Andersson is. I'm pretty confident in what Uyghur is. I think Zadorov is looking like he's taking a little more ownership and wanting to be more assertive and out there on the ice. And I've liked that. Noah Hannafin, again, I've never fully understood why. I like Noah Hannafin, in my opinion, is the 4th or 5th best defenseman on this team.
Really?
Well, yeah. I mean, 4th, probably not 5th, but in a playoff game, it's late. I think Chris Tanev brings out the best in him, but I think Chris Tanev, in a late in the playoff game, I might want him on the ice, and then I have Anderson and Weegar. So,
and that, hey, listen, that's what makes the world go round, and I love it, because to me, I want him to have a career year, because the Flames will benefit. He'll probably go somewhere else. He played his 600th game in the league tonight. Like, is crazy. Like,
10th youngest defenseman to ever do that.
Right?
10th youngest defenseman in NHL's history.
It's insane. But he's not a number one defenseman, right? I agree with you on that. I think he's a top pairing defenseman. But see, to me, it's down the line. It goes, this clearly goes without saying. They're missing, they're missing. I'm blanking now. Shillington. Right. And have been for 2 years. Right. And if you put him in there, Gilbert comes out, and that's a totally different looking blue line. But right now, I kind of go, geez, could you have kept Stetcher? I don't like the bottom of that blue line right now.
No, I'm hoping my connection is still okay here. I just want to quickly acknowledge that. I have to take out my headphones and plug in my phone, because I was not anticipating being on
It's
my
all
phone.
good,
So
brother.
4%.
Yeah.
I feel so just want to apologize for that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they anticipated what's happened with Oliver Shillington, right? So that's one of those ones where I think that they thought he was going to be back. I think they had a lot of confidence that he was going to be back, and so it's hard for me to be too critical of management for allowing a guy like Stetcher to walk.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. I do weird stuff's happening StreamYard here for me, but
okay.
But yeah, I love where it's game 2. We're learning here.
Oh sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And I do think, look, I've said this. I think that it is one of the things that I'm critical of about Brad Treliving is I understand that it was Sutter who sort of forced Valimaki to be put on waivers, but you'd sure like to have a guy like Valimaki still in the system now too. He's playing NHL minutes. They traded Connor Mackey away for effectively a month and a half.
They didn't play him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I agree with that. I really do agree with that. I love Brad. He's a friend of mine, that sort of thing. But I always felt his blind spot was that he allowed his coaches way too much influence in player personnel decisions. I go all the way back to them running Sven Berchi out of here with Bob Hartley because Bob didn't like him. And then 2 months later going, we got no skill on the wing. Well, you had skill on the wing. And then you got rid of it. And, Daryl Sutter, God bless him, won 2 Stanley Cups in Los Angeles, all those sort of things. And another guy I really like, but cost you Valimaki, who would be in the line. I believe Valimaki would play on this team. I believe Valimaki would play ahead of Gilbert and Osterley and maybe even Zadorov. I'm just, what I'm saying? Like, I think he still has that potential. But your refusal to develop players at the NHL level, which, yes, you didn't have to do that 20 years ago, but now you have to do that now. And I think, we'll wait and see. I'm very curious on Monday, see what Matt Phillips looks like. I think it's a little early. In Washington, he made the team, but you gotta fit in, and they still haven't scored, the sort of thing. But that one might come back and bite you too. So no, I hear you about. I'm the same way. Even Mackey. I think Mackey. There was lots of potential in Mackey. You had to find a way to play him, right?
Yeah, and I just don't like any time that you sort of give up on those young guys and don't get anything in return. So that's right. The hardest part of that for me. But it's just, I walked in, okay, StreamYard. I sort of walked into the season and all I heard about was they had no young defensemen in the pipeline. And I just thought, they did a year ago.
They did. Well, and that, right. And this exact same thing. We got no skill on the wing. You did, but you allowed your coach to run them off. So don't cry to me. right? You had that opportunity. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you the final thought, and then I'm going to let you go, and I'll run through some out-of-town scores because I'm a little worried that phone might blow up on you or something there like it. So as they get set to
I'm a little worse on the blow up on me.
And now you're cutting in and out.
So the next time we do this,
okay, you're good now.
I think we maybe should say goodnight and apologize for the technical issues. I'll be in studio next time. I really appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun.
Okay. Thanks, Danny. By the way, Derek Newman of Newman Deans Real Estate Group with CIR Realty, very proud to be one of our sponsors here. Buying or selling, let Derek do the work for you. Email him, his email at dnewman@cirrealty.ca or call him at 403-619-6661. Email him at dnewman@cirrealty.ca or give him a call, 403-619-6661. Complimentary in-house staging consultation, low pressure and easy to work with, accountable and available. These are just some of the things that separates him from everybody else. So check him out, Derek Newman of Newman Deans Real Estate Group with CIR Realty. The Flames lose in Pittsburgh tonight by a 5-2 score. It gives us an opportunity to take a look at the rest of the scores around the National Hockey League. Earlier today, it was Ottawa in their home opener beating the Philadelphia Flyers by a 5-2 score. A big game for Jacob Chychrun. He picked up a pair of goals and a helper in this one in the winning cause. Brady Tkachuk, 2 goals as well. Claude Giroux, who was honored for his success in 1,000 points in the league, had a couple of helpers in this one. Cam York and Konechny had the markers for the Flyers. So 5-2 is your final there. Elsewhere this afternoon, as it was busy, Winnipeg goes home and they host Florida in Winnipeg's home opener. It was a big win for the Jets, 6-4, lots of goals, big second period for Winnipeg. It was 1-1 after one, and Winnipeg went up 4-2 in the second and then held off the Panthers, who I believe had lost the night before in Minnesota as well. Scheifele picking up a goal in this game as well. Kyle Connor had 2. He continues to be red hot for for Winnipeg to start this season. And just again, Winnipeg, who probably felt like they deserved a better fate in Calgary on Wednesday, gets a better fate tonight against Florida. So the Jets moved to 1-1. Panthers dropped to 0-2. Elsewhere, it was Boston at home beating Nashville by a 3-2 score. Colton Sissons opened the scoring for Nashville with his second, and then it was James Van Riemsdyk, who is now in Boston, tying it with his first. Pasternak, his third of the year on a penalty shot, made it 2-1. Sissons, second of the game, third of the year, tied it, and Van Riemsdyk with his second of the game, second of the season, 2:52 into the third period, as a power play goal stands up as your game winner. So the Predators moved to 1-2 on the season, and the Bruins improved to 2-0. Again, early, but probably a much better start, I think, for the Bruins than some expected, considering they lost, Krejci and Patrice Bergeron and others this offseason. They had that incredible season last year. Columbus picks up their first win of the year as they knock off the Rangers by a 5-3 score. Eric Gustafsson opened it for the Rangers. Adam Fox, the former Flame prospect, picking up an assist then. But then it was Boone Jenner taking over with the natural hat trick. His first, his second, and then his third coming in the second period. So it goes to 3-1. The Rangers would cut into that lead, but they could not come all the way back. 5-3 is your final. Chris Kreider gets his third of the year late with power play goals, so he's back up to his old tricks as he was very good last year on the power play, very good this year. By the way, Merzlikins started the game for the Elvis started the game for Columbus, played 2 periods, stopped 23-24. Spencer Martin had to come in and relieve. Not sure exactly what happened there, but he stopped 12 of 13. and Shesterkin went the entire way. Not a great line for him. He takes the loss, stopping 15 of 19. Montreal beating Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks, but it was close. 3-2 is your final. The Canadiens improved to 1-0-1 on the season. The Blackhawks are 1-2 on the season, having dropped their last two after picking up their first win of the year in Pittsburgh. Caulfield, his second, and Pearson, his first, along with Monahan picking up his first, made it 3-0 in the second period. 2 goals for the Hawks in the third. Tyler Johnson gets them both. One early, 35 seconds in. His second came at 18:39. That is as close as the Blackhawks would get. If you're interested, Connor Bedard did pick up the second assist on Johnson's second goal, so he continues his point-a-game pace. Detroit with a big 6-4 win over Tampa Bay tonight. The Red Wings now move to 1-1 on the season, and the Lightning dropped to 1-1 on the season. Just taking a look at this, Stamkos picking up a goal, hit actually 2 goals in this game as well. Lucas Raymond, just Sprong's his second. So Daniel Sprong, nice little pickup for the Detroit Red Wings. Jonas Johansson, who's tasked with replacing Vasilevsky while he's injured, stops 34 of 39 fired his way. And in goal was Husso for the Red Wings. He stopped 20 of 23. And other finals tonight was Toronto beating Minnesota by a 7-4 score. I don't want to give away the ending, but he did it again. Austin Matthews picking up a hat trick in as many games. So Matthews off to a brilliant start, 6 goals on the season. Toronto just overwhelming Minnesota in this one. They outscored them 3-1 in the first. Now, Minnesota would bounce back in the second and get it within 1. It was 4-3 through 40, but Toronto with a big third period cruised to a 7-4 victory. Philip Gustafson takes the loss for Minnesota, stopped 23 of 28. Samsonov stops 26 of 30 in goal for the Leafs. The Leafs moved to 2-0. The Wild dropped to 1-1 on this season. And Buffalo and the Islanders playing. The Sabres now 0-2 to start the season. They lose 3-2 in New York against the Islanders. The Islanders moved, well, it was their first game, so they are 1-0 on the season. It was Casey Zizekas with the game winner, his first of the year, at 13:40 of the third period. Devin Levy, if you want, 23 of 26 in goal for Buffalo, and it was Sorokin. His line was excellent. He was 25 of 27. Other games that are not complete late in the third period, Seattle, and now they're in overtime, I should say. Seattle and St. Louis are tied at 1. The Kraken trying to avoid going down with 3 consecutive losses. The Blues looking for their first win of the season. Just 2 goal scorers. One is a former Blue, and Jaden Schwartz, his first of the year, and Jordan Kyrou has his first for the Blues, both goals coming in the second period. Joey Decord getting the start for the Kraken, and he hasn't been that busy. 13 saves on 14 shots. And Jordan Binnington has faced 21 shots and made 20 saves. So they are in overtime as we speak. Edmonton and Vancouver, the Canucks trying to build on that 8-1 drubbing in their home opener against the Oilers. It was Edmonton scoring first. Leon Draisaitl is second, just 42 seconds in. The Oilers were all over the Canucks. But Kuzmenko, his first on a power play at 9:25, has tied it. So Vancouver got through the rough water early, and right now things are starting to calm down a little bit. So, 1-1 with about 7 minutes to go in period number 1. Elsewhere, it's a busy night. San Jose leading Colorado 1-0. Sharks opening the season last night with a loss against Vegas. A couple nights ago, I should say. Colorado 1-0 coming into this one, but it's the Sharks with the early lead. Bordelot, his first at 8:42. Vegas and Anaheim are underway and are scoreless late in the first period as the Golden Knights back home with a 2-0 record. This is the first game of the year for Anaheim. Your goaltenders in this one, John Gibson has stopped 9 of 9 for the Ducks, and Aiden Hill has stopped all 5 shots he has faced. Later tonight, Carolina taking on the LA Kings. It's hockey season. Get ready to cheer on your favorite teams with us at the Stage Bar at Grey Eagle Resort and Casino. Enjoy the game on one of our large screens with friends, drinks, and delicious food. Let's go. Visit Grey Eagle Resort and Casino.ca for more information. So again, Grey Eagle Resort and Casino.ca for more information. The Calgary Flames fall to the Pittsburgh Penguins by a 5-2 score, led 1-0 through 40 minutes of play, and were playing a really good road game. And then Sidney Crosby happened early in period number 3, 2 goals, 23 seconds apart in the first minute, and then they just piled it on from there. Markstrom was excellent for most of this game. You cannot fault him. There was lots of things to be positive about, including Matt Coronado with a beauty on the power play. So Calgary, 1-1 to start the season, may have deserved a better fate through 40 minutes tonight, but certainly the third period didn't help them. They'll have some work to do as they get set to take on Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals coming up on Monday. We'll have Afterburner after that game as well. And then Calgary gets a couple of days off before getting back at it in Buffalo coming up on Thursday. Thanks to Danny Austin for joining us tonight. And thanks to our outstanding producer, Jack and RJ, who put this show together. Just a reminder, thanks to the great people that have put faith into this show, Greta Bar and Grill. Check them out, gretabar.com. Betway. Get the Betway app on your phone. Be responsible with Betway. Grey Eagle Resort and Casino, check them out. Visit greyeagleresortandcasino.ca for more information. Also, BK Beaufort Liquor, who've been day one, have jumped on board with this. You can find them on the Trans-Canada Highway across from Winsport beside McDonald's. And, of course, Derek Newman of Newman Dean's Real Estate Group with CIR Realty. Email him at dnewman@cirrealty.ca. Calgary loses in Pittsburgh by a 5-2 score. Back in action on Monday in Washington. That'll do it. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.